I want you to think of this. 4 out of 10 homes that will be in Brampton within 20 years do not exist today. That's incredible. 4 out of 10. But going at the world stage, half of the homes that we'll have within 40 years do not exist today. Today we got about 3.5 billion people living in cities. Within the students' lifetime, within the singers that were here, within their lifetime, we're going to have 7 billion people living in cities. And it could be very nice and very civilized. In Canada, our population is going to grow by 7 million people. And all of it in cities. Almost 9 out of 10 people already live in cities, and all of the growth is going to be in cities. Canada's population is like 11 Bramptons in the next 30 years. And according to the Vision 2040, Brampton's population is going to grow by 62%. Here we got all of the numbers. It's going to go from 615,000 to about 1 million people. And it could be very nice. But of course, it has to densify. Ideally, whether it's the world or Canada or Brampton, we should, hopefully, all of the growth is in the existing footprint. And when you talk about growth, density, people always think, oh no, but I don't want that 40-story building. No, you don't have to have the 40-story building. Here, there are different ways. You can have the 40-story building, or you can have different ones. I mean, you can have the same density with 5-story buildings next to each other than with 40-story buildings every other block. So it doesn't have to be the 40-story building. Actually, once you go above 10 floors, you have more in common with the birds and the planes than with people. So it's a lot nicer, a lot more humane, the 5 or 6-story buildings. So, and we can be just as dense. So we got a great opportunity, but also a huge responsibility, because whatever we do or don't do is how people are going to live for hundreds of years. So if this is going to happen in the next 20 to 40 years, let's see what we've done in the last 20 or 40. Because if what we've been doing is good, okay, let's just do more of the same. But this is how we've been doing cities around the world in the last 40 years. We've been segregating, sending the poor people to the worst places. And it's not only the emerging countries. Yesterday I was working in Arizona, in Phoenix, and I was showing them some of this data, all of the cities in the US. Imagine this. This is by zip code, by postal code. The postal codes in dark green, the life expectancy is 60. In light pink is 90. How can we even accept that if you happen to be born in one part of the city, your life expectancy is 60? If by luck or God or whatever you are born 10 minutes away, it's going to be 90. So clearly the way we've been doing cities is not very equitable. I mean, we've been focusing on cars, and not on people's happiness. And this is how we've been trying to solve mobility. By the way, there is no city the size of Brampton that have solved mobility through the private car. None. If that was an option, there would be hundreds of examples because everyone has tried. Somehow, this is Florence, Italy, and one highway intersection at the same scale. It seems like after thousands of years, we learned how to do cities, and then we unlearned. I mean, the cities are not responsible for the what, how much population, that's at the national level, but the cities are responsible for the how. The city council decides if it's going to be 40-story buildings or if it's 5-story. When people say, oh, the developers, no, the developers do whatever city council lets them do. So if city council says, oh, you can do whatever, like Mississauga downtown, the law of the jungle. City council said, you can do whatever you want. Okay, they do 40-story buildings. But if you tell them, no, you can only do 6, they do 6. This is how we've been doing cities in the last 20 to 40 years. No trees, no parks. Actually, instead of parks, we've been doing parking lots. Imagine if you are a 5-year-old, if you are an elder, if you are a handicapped person, you become kind of like a slave of someone with a car just to go out for an ice cream. So the last 20 to 40 years have not been very good. The overwhelming majority, there are very isolated cases that are the exception, but the overwhelming majority is mediocre and much is very bad. So we got to improve the cities that we have today, but we also got to create great cities for many, many more people. And we're going to have to do it radically different. radically different. I'm going to show you examples of cities that are 2,000 people, others have 1 million or 5 million. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. It's not about copying and pasting. No, it's not about adapting. The issues are the same. The solutions are different. I mean, we're having public health crisis in small and large cities. We're growing. There's climate change. And we see the symptoms everywhere, even if some people don't want to believe in them. The cities where we have density, like this is Chicago. Downtown Chicago, where we have density, is very low impact. As you have sprawl and single homes and no density, then the impact of climate change. So having density is a big part of the solution. So I'm really glad that Brampton said, we are going to declare a climate change emergency. Well, climate change emergency is about this, density. Climate change emergency is about walking and cycling and transit. So how do you want Brampton to become? So I want to take you through 8 messages. The first one is that all of this is not about the money. People say, oh, let's do bikeways. Oh, we don't have money. Let's do a park. We don't have money. And then you see that they're widening roads, doing flyovers. Before, I've been in Canada now 20 years. Before immigrating to Canada, I was commissioner. And I learned that it was not about the money I was doing. Now I advise many cities. I've worked in more than 350 cities. In my term, we built over 200 parks in one term, all over the city, small ones, big ones. Then one of my brothers became mayor, and we had a lot of the signs. He did another 600. In 2 terms, we built over 800 parks. This was one of them. The Pope came here, gave a mass for 1 million people, and then the Pope left, and nothing happened in 27 years. Why nothing happened? Because change is hard. Change is hard in Brampton, or in Bogota, or in Copenhagen, or in Mumbai, or in Tokyo. Changes are, when you try to change in Brampton, you know, the cave people show up. You know them because they're everywhere. They're the citizens against virtually everything. But don't take no for an answer. You know, you gotta find a way. You gotta find how to make things happen. It's not how to find excuses for them not. So it was like this for 27 years, and in 4 years, we turned it into the nicest park. For active, for passive, for contemplative. And it's not just about soccer fields, it's about also sitting down and smelling the roses. Some activities that you do with lots of people, others that you just do with friends, and the water, because parks is about that. It's about the uses and the activities, and parks are about the people. Also, I found a small program of a few kilometers and a few thousand people, Ciclovia. In North America, we call it Open Streets, and we created the world's largest pop-up park. Sunday mornings, we open it up, and people come out. It's really simple. Do it in Brampton. You open streets to people, you close them to cars, and the magic happens. 121 kilometers every single Sunday. And people walk, and people bike, and skate, and run. But more than anything, people enjoy the presence of each other. And if you don't want to walk or bike or skate along the route, we do aerobics, and Tai Chi, and Cha-Cha-Cha. But the common denominator is physical activity. It would be great if you did it in Brampton from Victoria Day in May to Labor Day in September. Young and old, rich and poor, fat and skinny. 1 out of 4 people come out every single Sunday. Why is this important? Because it changes minds. All of a sudden, we shake people up and say, the streets. You know, when we look at Brampton from the air, 30%, 1/3 of Brampton are streets. The streets are public space. The streets are the biggest public space in any city. And they can have different uses according to the time of the day of the week of the year. Who would have thought the city of angels and cars, they are doing it every month, and Mayor Garcetti now wants to do it every week. And there are many cities that it's also about social integration. So when we have all of these ethnicities in Brampton, fantastic to get them to mix. When I started going to India, 10 years ago, they didn't have any. Now they got more than 50 cities doing it every Sunday. And if you don't want to do it because it's Colombia or it's India, and some people are more snobby, tell them that Paris is doing it every week. Even during the winter time, we meet as equals, and that is very powerful. Over 300 cities are doing it. Also, 280 kilometers of protected bikeways. And went from a few thousand to now almost 1 million people riding bikes. Always connecting. And some of the places that we did it here in Brampton, it's almost impossible to imagine the level of poverty. Look at the level of poverty. And look at the quality of the sidewalks and the bikeways. we need to dignify the pedestrian. We need to dignify the cyclist. And that is part of why it has to be. When I say it's not an issue of money, as you can see, the road still is unpaved. A future administration will do it. It's an issue of priorities. If we say in the 2040 plan, we're going to promote active transportation, okay, we got to be consistent between what we think, what we say, and what we do. And we need to have all the bikeways physically separated. There are many different ways to separate the bikeways. But paint is not enough. In addition of the paint, you got to have some kind of physical separation for people to be able to use them. And when I'm talking tonight about walking, I'm talking about anyone that moves at the speed of the pedestrian. My brother was mayor then and then was mayor last year. He's been mayor twice. When he started talking about bus rapid transit, people said, what? Bus rapid transit is like a subway but above ground. This used to be a transportation system. The first line was built in 36 months, from idea to implementation. By the way, with dedicated lanes. It was the first big system around the world. There was a small one in Curitiba, Brazil, and now there are many cities all over the world that are doing bus rapid transit, but with dedicated lanes, with all the traffic lights at the speed. In addition, in these last 4 years, cable cars to some of the poorest neighborhoods. Also, a metro line elevated train was designed and contracted, and is under construction. Almost 600 electric buses were purchased. Also, 1,500 buses of gas, of 2- and 3-body buses. Why am I talking about Bogota, when obviously it's not the ideal city? Is to make the case that it's not about the money, because of course Bogota is much poorer than Brampton. It's decades behind Brampton. But let's leave Bogota on the side. Let's talk about 880 cities. I've been lucky that I founded and chair 880 cities based in Canada. And also I was chair of World Urban Parks, now ambassador. And that's the Twitter. And I've been lucky to work in over 350 different cities. World Urban Parks, basically we think everybody should have quality parks. Small, medium, large. And it would be great if Brampton became a member, because it's a place for everybody to learn from everybody, to exchange information. And if everybody wants information, it's worldurbanparks.org. But everywhere I go, people say, Gil, what's 880 cities? Well, 880 cities is not about walking or cycling or parks or streets. Those are the means, not the end. The end is how can we help create successful cities. And I like to go and see the venue. Like I came this afternoon early to see the venue. The other day I was going to speak in Warsaw, Poland, and I was going to speak outdoors. So I went the day before to see the venue, and I see all of these people dancing, and I said, oh my God, how am I going to compete with these people? And then I saw the DJ Vika. We're living longer. She's a businesswoman. She owns the sound equipment and goes from city to city, from park to park, organizing dances. So that is the idea of 880 cities, cities that are vibrant, that are successful, that are healthy for people of all ages, where people are going to live happier. And always people say, Gil, is this intersection safe? Can my children walk to school? Can my grandparents ride their bike to get eggs or milk? Look, you don't need to be a transportation engineer. We call it rule of common sense, but common sense seems to be the least common of the senses. 3 steps. Step number 1, think of a child that you love. Each one of you, think of someone around 8 years old. Your son, your daughter, your grandchild. Once you have that child in mind, step number 2, think of an 80-year-old that you love. Your parents, your grandparents. And when you have the child and the older adult, go to step number 3. Would you send them across that intersection? Would you send them walking to school or to the park or riding their bike or walking to public transit? If you would, it's because it's safe enough. If you would not, it's because it's not, and we got to do it better. What if everything that we did in Brampton, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, the school, the restaurant, the library, the theater, everything had to be great for an 8 and an 80, not 8 to 80, 8 and 80 as an indicator species. Because if it's good for the 8 and it's good for the 80, it's going to be good from 0 to over 100. We need to stop building cities as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletic. And let's build a Brampton for everyone. That's what 880 cities is. Third, let's move on sustainable mobility. I mean, walking, riding bicycles, using public transit, new uses of cars. In Brampton, this is how people get to work. If you don't see those numbers, let's make it clear. 0.3% bike, practically no one. Walk, 2%, public cars, 81%. So it's not very sustainable. I mean, walking and cycling, by the way, is not a joke. This is how people in Brampton could get to places. Walking and cycling is not a frivolity. This little girl will tell you. I mean, walking and cycling is the only individual mode of mobility for most people. Walking and cycling is for all children and youth. If you're under 16, your only individual mode of mobility is to walk or bike. So it should be almost like a human right. Unless you think that only the people that have the age and the money and the desire to have a car have a right to individual mobility. That's why we're also talking about democracy and human rights and equality and sustainability, because everything is linked. It's about how do we want to live. Walking. Who came walking today? A few? Actually, I don't see any cars here, or buses, or bikes. Every single trip, everybody came walking. Every trip became announced by walking. We walk to the cars, we walk to public transit. Everybody walks, so we need to walk and make it fantastic, enjoyable. That's how humans, that's how we were created. Just like the birds fly or the deer runs, people, we walk. We walk, and when we walk, even in the middle of the winter with our babies, it's how we were created. And maybe we're so happy because we use all our senses. We're walking and we see the children playing or the youth going to school. We hear the birds singing. We're going from our coffee shop as we smell the aroma. Parents and children walk. Older adults walk. We walk in the summer. We walk in the winter. But we got to make it safe. Safe. And it's not safe. Yesterday, people driving cars killed 741 people walking. 700. That's more than a person every 2 minutes. You know, less than a year ago, 2 planes crashed and everybody died. What happens? We grounded the 737s all over the world. Well, every single day, the people driving motor vehicles killed the equivalent of 5 Boeing 737s. 5 yesterday, 5 today, 5 tomorrow. And they're not accidents. Accidents are when they cannot be avoided. They're incidents. They can be avoided. For example, Vision Zero. Vision Zero is saying people are not perfect, so we need to design the speed and the engineer and the structure so that people will not be killed, whether they're walking or cycling or on public transit or on cars. No one should be dying in traffic incidents. And then some cities apply Vision Zero, like your neighbors in Toronto, but then they don't put the money or the actions. So instead of Vision Zero, it's zero vision. It doesn't work just by saying, oh, we're going to prove this. I mean, people are dying all over the GTA. It's not only in Toronto. It's in Brampton. It's in Mississauga. It's in Peel. We see it day after day after day. The other day I said, oh, on a rainy day in the GTA, 16 people walking, hit by cars. On another rainy day, it was 12 in Toronto, 4 in York and Peel. What do you mean on a rainy day? We need to build streets safe for the rainy day. It's not for the Sunday morning at 10 a.m. in the middle of the summer. I mean, in Toronto, a person driving is a person walking every 3.5 hours. We know what a complete street is, that it has to be safe for everybody. And if we're going to improve walking, we got to make it a priority. It's not about, this is not a priority. It's not about allowing cars on the sidewalks. That's not a priority. It's not about not doing sidewalks or doing sidewalks without a ramp. I mean, we're telling this woman every single day she's a second-class citizen when we don't even do sidewalks. I mean, the sidewalks is the most important infrastructure in a city, the sidewalks. I mean, on the street, whether you are on bicycles, on transit, or on cars, you are going from point A to point B. Not on the sidewalks. On the sidewalks, that's where people meet boyfriends and girlfriends. And people meet their neighbors, and someone is walking with a dog, and we meet the person that sells flowers and fruits and coffee shops. We said, oh, I'm going to go for a coffee, and I take an hour. I go and sit and socialize and continue. We go to any city, we leave the bags in the hotel, and we go to the sidewalks where we develop a sense of belonging. We walk in the summer. We use the sidewalks in the winter. The children catch Pokemon on the sidewalks. Others catch public transit. The sidewalks is the life of the cities. So we got to play at sidewalks, remind us that walking is much more than walking. When I work in Buenos Aires, I see people dancing tango in the sidewalks, are almost part of the family of the parks. I mean, in Brampton, we should say, given the fact that walking is good for mental and physical health, the environment, mobility, two-word law. Pedestrians first. So that anything the city does, anyone wants to apply for something in the city, first they got to say, okay, how will this impact the pedestrians? I mean, if we're going to improve walkability, we got to lower the speed. All the residential streets in Brampton should be 30. Why 30? Because if you get hit by a car at 30 kilometers an hour, there is 5% probability of being killed. At 50, it's more than 80%. More than 80%. So it's about life and death. I mean, on the Vision 2040 that you have this at 30, at 40, at 50. So it's up to you. It's up to city council to decide. If the maximum speed is 30 and someone gets hit, 1 in 10 is going to be killed. At 40, 5 in 10. At 50, 9 in 10. So it's up to city council to decide. Do we want to lower to 1 in 10? Or 5 in 10, or 9 in 10. So, but in addition, if we lower the speed, people walk because people don't like walking when the cars are going by at 40, 50, 60. Also, people can share bicycles and cars. I mean, these are not technical issues. We know, so we just need to implement. If we have a small island in the crosswalk, we eliminate more than half of the incidents. Why are we still doing crosswalk without an island? When we know that people are going to save lives, children going to field trip, they don't cross on one light, they wait for the second light. And people are being killed in intersections all the time, especially older people. I mean, sustainable mobility is not just about walking. It's also riding bicycles, using transit, new uses of cars. And bicycles, this could be Brampton, at least 9 months of the year. I mean, Brampton, you could be as good as anybody. As good, that's one thing that I want to make very clear. You can be as good as anybody. Don't just aim to be better than Mississauga. I mean, you say, oh, but we're better. No, you got to be better than anybody. I mean, Mississauga, the downtown Mississauga, how did the downtown was created? Some developers were doing Square One and say, oh, city, we're so nice that we're going to give you a building for City Hall for $1. And as a bonus, we're going to give you a master plan of the city center. A city center that is good for Square One, but is horrible for the city. Gigantic buildings all over the place that don't connect anything with anything. It's so horrible that now, 30 years later, now they announced last month, oh, now we're going to tear down Square One and do like 40 buildings in the area of Square One. It's not about being better than Mississauga or even being better than Toronto. You got to compete with the world. I mean, you are going to increase the population to 1 million people. But you got to decide, are you going to get the cream of the crop or are you going to get the leftovers? For example, you can be in cycling. Riding bicycles in Brampton is horrible. There is no infrastructure. Other than the trails, you have beautiful trails, fantastic. But those trails must be interwoven into the city. But you can be as good as Copenhagen. Why not? What does Copenhagen have that Brampton doesn't have? People, infrastructure. It's safe to bike there. That's why people bike. It's cold in the winter, it's hot in the summer, it rains all year round. And people bike. They said there's no such thing as bad weather. It's bad clothing. 41 out of 100 trips are done on bicycles. 41. In the downtown, 60 out of 100. And they're not happy with 41, they want to go to 50. Men don't wear shirts in the winter. Women don't have to use special shoes. I mean, this could be Brampton. Why not? At one level is for the cars, 8 centimeters higher for bikes, 8 centimeters higher for pedestrians. There is a physical separation. And now they got bike share with GPS. And when they have too many bikes, they're widening the bikeways. They're putting some that are dedicated for bicycles, the traffic lights at the speed of the bicycle. Brand new bridges that was done about 7 years ago. Counting. This is how people move in the center of Copenhagen. In the plan 2040, you have 3 big areas that are going to densify. Well, is this how you are going to move? Maybe. Why? Why not? I mean, if we're going to improve bikeability in Brampton, really, It's not about painting shadows that no one respects. It's not about putting signs or parking. It's not about doing maps or lockers it's not even about putting racks on the buses or even bike share. That is like getting the saddle before the horse. That makes it nicer for the 0.3% that are cycling. It makes it nicer for that 0.3. But that doesn't get new cyclists. I mean, think of any infrastructure. If it's not safe for an 8-year-old and it's not safe for an 80, it's nothing. Nothing. Don't even call it a bikeway. You got to think of them when you do the infrastructure. I mean, older people, experts might go in between trucks, but the children are not going to be able to go in between trucks. We got to think of immigrants from countries where cycling is not part of the culture. We got to think of elders in the tricycles. The only two things that will increase cycling in Brampton and anywhere in the world is one, to lower the speed in the neighborhoods, and two, to create a network of protected bikeways. So everything I said about walking at 30K is the same for cycling. So the second is create a network of AAA bikeways. What's AAA? It's for all ages and abilities. It's not for the 20 to 16 spandex. It's for everybody. And connectivity. Please don't do 1 kilometer that doesn't connect anything with anything and then say, oh, let's see if people use it. What? Do just 1 kilometer for the cars and see if people will use it. Think of the daytime and the nighttime and the people opening the doors. And if you don't have the political decision or the money to do permanent like this one in Paris, please do not just paint a line because people are not going to use it. I mean, painted lines. Last week, a woman on a wheelchair in Mississauga, in Dixie, was killed on this bike lane because it's just painted line. Enhance the painted line, even with plastic bollards every 2 meters, and it's going to make a world of difference. I mean, people bike in Copenhagen is because there's connectivity from anywhere to anywhere. And walking, cycling, we also got to improve public transit. Someone said the civilized city is not the one where the poor have cars, it's the one where the rich use public transit. So in Brampton, you got to have buses. And maybe the LRT, that can be great. And part of it is marketing. Someone said, the mayor of Malmo told me, Gil, our people didn't like buses. So what did he do, the mayor? He put a nose on the bus, he covered the wheels, and now they look like trains. They love it. This could be anywhere in Brampton. And please, don't allow this horrible thing that people do. Cover the windows. I've never seen a private car like this. Why do we think? We need to dignify the transit users. Also because it's not safe. For safety, you need to be able from the inside to see outside, but also from the outside to see inside. I mean, sell advertisement, but below the windows. And if you're going to sell advertising, please, don't sell cars on public transit. Because it's very painful. We got to have, in public transit, we need connectivity and frequency. For example, don't do this horrible thing that Metrolinx is doing all over the GTA. These horrible parking towers, $40 million each, 40,000 each one. What are these parking towers are doing for 1,000 people? They are creating a huge traffic jam because they have 1,000 more cars coming in between 7 and 8 in the morning and leaving between 5 and 6 in the afternoon. Why not invest those $40 million in local transit? There are many people that are asphyxiated financially, and they need to have a second or a third or a fourth car just to go to the GO transit. No, invest in local transit so that it's seamless, the local transit and the GO transit. And people say, but where are we going to put public transit? Well, do the mobility math. Do you want one of those or 140 of those? Do you want one of this or 145 of those? By the way, Brampton is becoming famous around the world because 2 years ago, I was working in Austria, and I was so interested in the LRT that you were going to have in Brampton that I listened to the whole debate through YouTube till 4 o'clock in the morning because it finished here like at 11 at night. And people around the world are saying, can you imagine that there is a city in Canada that the provincial government was going to give him an LRT for free, 100% paid. They designed the construction, the maintenance. And the city council met and said, no, we don't want it because we don't want this to go through the city center. What? Then where do you want the public transit? So it's becoming famous. I think you gotta change that because you got to become famous for something else, not for saying no to a free light rail fully funded and fully designed. For example, BRT. You're going to do BRTs. Look at BRT, by the way. The rapid in bus rapid transit, the rapid in any transit is not if the wheels are rubber or metal. The rapid is if it has dedicated lanes. And in addition of dedicated lanes, prepaid fares, easy in and out, traffic signal priority so that when it's going, it always gives green to the public transit. Imagine moving like that, going from anywhere to anywhere. But you got to put it in the right place. Don't do what Mississauga did. They had a BRT that should have gone through the heart of the city, Burnhamthorpe, where all the density, they got 15,000 students at UTM and the city center, and instead they put it in the middle of the highway where no one lives. Why? Because they didn't have the guts to put it in the right place. You need to do things right, but even more important, you need to do the right things. So, walking, cycling, and transit takes up a lot less space. I'm not saying this is the end of the car industry, but the way we'll use cars is very different. Young people now in Canada, 16 to 24, are getting less driver's license than in the last 40 years. And there are many new uses. There are electric and hydrogen, and there are driverless cars, and people do all of these multiple scenarios of the driverless cars. Everything is going to be fantastic. And they say, with driverless, we're not going to have traffic jams. As if the traffic jam was the driver. Is the car. If we don't change our behavior, we're going to have the same traffic jams. So it might be great or it might be horrible. It's up to all of us. 4, let's have parks for people. What are the great parks? They are great if people come, if they visit, stay, and come back. It's not if they win awards. Let me give you some symptoms of parks and public places. So one symptom is good places to sit. This guy needed 5 chairs to be happy. Not a bench for his feet, his Big Mac. Sometimes people see, monkey does. Sometimes people see, people do. We don't put benches on the sidewalks. Or we put nails so young people won't sit. This guy was so tired he had to sit on his briefcase. His friend actually fainted. And his wife is sitting on their baby. But when you have nice places to sit, it's kind of magical. Even in the middle of the winter, this elder woman comes. When you have movable chairs, people don't even sit facing each other. It starts to rain and people won't move. When I was working in Istanbul, I saw these people sitting on bollards, which is kind of ironic when they got like 20 chairs there. Another symptom, sociability. If on the sidewalks, on the parks, you see people talking to each other, it's a good symptom. Another symptom is diversity. When you see children, you see youth, you see elder, you see handicap. Another symptom is having affection. What affection we feel at ease. Another symptom, high proportion of women. Women are more selective if the place is not safe and clean. But those are symptoms. But the biggest problem of parks in Canada is management. Because cities tend to think that management and maintenance is the same. No, maintenance, picking up the garbage and cutting the grass, might be 20%. Of course, we gotta pick up the garbage, but we gotta have activities, grandparents and grandchildren doing bread. We gotta have people walking and running and playing chess and having lunch and reading books and taking a nap. Management is having volunteers, but giving them the tools. Management is citizen engagement, asking them before, during, after, what is it that they want in the parks. Management is also having resources, human, financial, physical. Management is also having a good thing with the city, not having the same things in every park. Management is having safety. In London, England, I saw this in a park. Beware of the thieves. This is like an open invitation to the thieves of the city. You need a lot of police when the parks are empty. You don't need when they have lots of people. Somehow, it seems easier to find $1 million to do parks than to find a few thousand to make it work. You say, let's do move in the park. We don't have money. Let's do walking groups. We don't have money. Uses. If you don't have uses and activities, people will not come. The lowest cost for safe parks is uses and activities. Let's keep in mind that empty parks have very few benefits. So we need that management. Sometimes management is invisible, but someone gave them the permit from what time to what time for people to do laughing yoga. We need a citywide park system. We need to have the small neighborhood park where we develop a sense of belonging, where we meet our neighbors. But we also need to have the large park, the linear park, the beautiful trails that you have, the ravines, magnificent. And we need the parks throughout the year. The parks is not just a summer issue. It's a 52-week of the year. So all of those trails that you have along the ravines, they should be plowed all year round. I mean, in Calgary, they plow 220 kilometers of trail every winter. And they have a lot more snow. So if Calgary can do it, of course you can do it. 5, it's not about copying Calgary or anybody. Let's see what others do and adapt and improve, because everybody can learn. You know, in Toronto, they wanted us, 880, to show what it would look like, the Danforth, with a wider sidewalk and a bike lane. So we invited some volunteers on Friday, got a little bit of paint and plants and flowers, and we created a wider sidewalk, and we created a bike lane, and we showed the city and the citizens that it could be done and that it could be safe. Also, they invited us to a school and said, let's make coming to school safer. So 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, close to cars, and games for people. Cities do change. When say, oh, but we're not going to change. Yeah, look, Melbourne. Melbourne was horrible 30 years ago. Now it's in the top 5 cities in the world. Some of the things that they have done, you can do in Brampton, putting public art all over the place, but not for people at 100 kilometers an hour, for people at 5 kilometers an hour. They planted trees. Look at the streets without any trees, they look horrible. You put trees and it's good for everything. It's good for the environment, it's good for health, it's good for business. They had a lot of these laneways that were dark and horrible. They created business in partnership, the city and the business. Not 1 or 2, 81 of these laneways they have been doing. They had a river going through the middle, the Yarra River, with factories. They got rid of the factories. They created a linear park on both sides of the river. They are densifying. That density that people are so horrified, well, that's what they did. They put densities. No one wanted to live in downtown Melbourne. All of a sudden, now everybody wants to live in downtown Melbourne. Beautiful street furniture, all kinds of activities. You don't need cars. I mean, the issue of the density. Don't worry about the look at the suburbs of Melbourne. The suburbs are very much like Brampton. It's like this. So in the activity centers where the LRT might come or whatever, it's going to grow by 3%. And what happens? Whatever they're going to put, either bus rapid transit, the urban corridors. You know, this look like any community in Brampton, single homes. Here, anybody that lives here, anywhere here, anywhere, people are like no children can go and buy an ice cream because there is no ice cream place around. There is no coffee places. There are no restaurants. There's no bookstores. Nothing around. Not even public transit. So they're saying, what if we put public transit here and allow density only where public transit is going? Not inside. The neighborhood is the same density, same houses, except that next to public transit, allow in front of it. And they're doing it really simple. They're telling people, look, the buildings are not 40-story buildings, are the width of this road. So if the road is 40 meters, the building can have 40 meters. If the road is 30, it can have 30. If the road is 50, it can have 50. But no more. The first level has to be retail. From then up, either for housing or for offices. No parking in front, parking either below or behind, or no parking. And all of a sudden, I'm showing people, look, this is what some of these main streets look like, and this is what they could look like. So if you go from this to this, all of a sudden you're going to have a vibrant city. You're going to have public transit and restaurants and bookstores and ice cream places and all kinds, going from this to this. So it's totally doable. And you might say also, winter. Oh, but here we got winter. I know that in Brampton you got 20 horrible days. She knows it. And you got another 50 that are not that nice. But you got more than 200 nice days of the year. The problem is that sometimes planners, they think of the 20 horrible days. And then they mess up the 365 days. We make these gigantic vacuums that suck the life out of the city, like the underground path in Toronto. It's horrible. It works. You see people 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, no one at night, no one Saturdays, Sundays. They don't integrate. They totally segregate. They don't want poor people. They don't want youth with skateboard parks. Some don't do it below ground. Some do it like Calgary, the plus 15s connecting, where the only life is the signs they put on the outside. So don't do that horrible thing. Of course, we have winter, so let's do better infrastructure. Let's do better street furniture. Let's focus on the 200 nice days. And when we focus on the 200 nice days, even the bad days are not going to look that bad. I remember that in Toronto, there was a a mayor that used to say traffic is horrible because of the cyclists. Maybe traffic is horrible is because there are not enough cyclists. Imagine that traffic jam if all of these cyclists were going in cars. It would be 10 times worse. Of course, winter has to be a priority. Let's work on the public places. I mean, you have the Gage Park here. It's magnificent. I tell everybody in the winter, go to the Gage Park with the lights and the music. We got to tell the media people, be more positive about winter. Because even since August, on September, there's that, winter is coming. Oh, if you can go to Arizona, go to Arizona. What? Look, if you don't like winter, go do the weather in Arizona because we have winter. We need to learn how to live with winter. And let's close some streets and let's play ice hockey. Let's do aerobics in the outside. Let's do movies in the middle of the winter. But of course, if it's winter, let's have beaver tails and hot chocolate and music, and let's make it nicer. This is when I was in Winnipeg and the river. All of a sudden, you got these warming huts, and I was working in Alaska, ice fishing. And one of the things that people don't like too much about winter is not the cold, is that it's dark. So let's have lots of lights. Like these lights, don't even call them Christmas lights. Let's call them winter lights because also Christmas is not politically correct. And right after Halloween, let's do it November to March, winter lights. And then let's make it lots of lights so that people are more uplifted. 6, it's about the benefits. It's not about streets or mobility or parks. It's about having a Brampton that is successful and healthy for everyone. Everything that I've been talking about is good for any of this, for culture and recreation. And when you see some city council, anyone from city council? Okay, when you see any councilor, think what matters to them. Because to one councilor, it might be economic development. For another, it might be the climate change. For example, if for a councilor it is health and well-being, tell them, is this what we want Brampton to look like? The issue of obesity that has to do with heart attacks. It has to do with depression, with anxiety, with diabetes. 1 in 4 adults in Brampton is obese, not overweight, obese. We got to improve the school lunches. We got to have farmers market in every neighborhood in Brampton. We got to have urban gardening in the libraries, outside of the libraries, the community centers, the parks, but also we need to be active. If we're physically active, we're going to lower premature death and strokes and mental health. And it's not about doing marathons. It's only 30 minutes a day. Children, 60 minutes a day. So there's an urgency that we are physically active. People are looking for a magic pill. There is no magic pill. Actually, the magic pill is physical activity. The only way that Brampton is going to be physically active, the only way, is if people walk or bike as a normal part of everyday life. There is no other way. There is nowhere in the world where large segments of the population are physically active other than walking or cycling as a normal part of everyday life. That's why I'm making so much emphasis. 7, all of you, let's have as priority the most vulnerable. How do we evaluate the cities? By how do we treat the most vulnerable? And the most vulnerable by age are the children and the elderly. But if children and elderly, in addition, are poor, or have disabilities, or are from a racial minority, or an ethnic minority, or are women, Brampton, let's make sure that it's not about creating out of Brampton, making a Disney World for the wealthy and healthy 20 to 60. It's about everybody. And last, we gotta change. We need to change. The way we are growing is not sustainable environmentally, it's not good for physical health or for mental health or for climate change or for economic development. Why don't we change? Because change is hard. Doing more of the same is easy. So 3 recommendations for change, because the Vision 2040 is about change. Change is not unanimous. Listen to everybody, but it's not unanimous. Second, the general interest must prevail over the particular. And third, the cost of doing nothing is not nothing. Sometimes people say, let's do nothing, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. No, in 20 years, you're going to have 400,000 more people. So you got to do. Or if you decide not to do, you are making a decision. Elections matter, so make sure you know who you are electing. Citizen advocacy. Don't say, what am I going to do by myself? Well, what if she, 15-year-old, had thought, what am I going to do by myself? Well, now she is leading a movement, and as part of her movement, she is inviting people, and she's saying, act as if the house was on fire, because it is. So I want to end by saying, these are not technical issues. These are not financial. This is about policy. It has nothing to do with political parties. It's not the Liberals or the NDP or the Conservatives. It's a big P. Everybody, all of you, everybody needs to participate. Brampton really has the opportunity to create a new way for cities. Learn from everybody, but do whatever you think is right for you. Let's remember what I said at the beginning. 4 in 10 homes that you will have in 20 years do not exist today. What a great opportunity for Brampton and responsibility. And when you see the Vision 2040 plan, there are so many good things. Here are some of the ideas, like with Queen Street. Let's make sure this is not just paint, because bike lanes with just paint, they do not work. It has to be a physical separation. But look at this, with dedicated lanes, the bus rapid transit, and connectivity has to be all over the city. And this is the vision of mobility. One of the things that's nice about the vision is that it says, who walk, bike, take transit, or drive, people of all ages and abilities. It's not just for the experts, it's for all ages and abilities, everything that you do. And this is part of some of the centers that they're talking about, and the 3 centers and the connectivity. So be bold. Be bold. Benchmark with the best. You gotta say, okay, which cities around the world have a similar income, similar weather, similar levels of education? Okay, which one has the best tree canopy? Which one has the best parks? Which one has the best quality of air? The best level of happiness? Do broad alliances with everybody, all political parties, alliances with the private sector, the public sector, the NGOs. Develop a sense of urgency and have a shared vision. That 2040 plan, a shared vision. Make sure you might tweak it here or there, but it has to be a shared vision. But vision alone is not enough. You need action. Because if you have the vision but you don't have action, you become frustrated because you know what needs to happen, but you don't do it. And then with vision in action, you are going to be able to create a vibrant and healthier and happier Brampton for everyone. So Brampton, let's do it. Now, thank you very much.